so much for the extra support on my last true crime video. If you all don't know, I asked for anyone new who is watching to help by subscribing, and then everyone else to help by commenting or liking the video. It she was not seen on any footage running in town back later that afternoon, so they began to believe that something had happened to her between the Tipanacos Cave Trail and reaching that V station at the entryway of the canyon. 6 months after Jerica had gone missing, a photographer she fell off an higher rock or just happened to fall right there. I'm not sure. But since she had several broken bones, I believe she did fall from a higher altitude. Apparently, after that, she had tried to crawl her way back down the mountain after breaking her bones, but sadly, she did not make it out in time. A snowstorm hit later that afternoon and early evening, and Jerica was sadly only wearing a hoodie and leggings, I believe. She